Hi, all. Welcome wherever you're joining from, and thank you for being here in this shared inquiry on well-being for all. I'm Marta Ceroni, and I'm the co-director of the Academy for Systems Change. And at this time of intensity and escalation, we wanted to deepen into our inquiry that is different than problem solving and strategizing. And we wanted to ground ourselves in the conditions that make us well and keep us well as individuals, as collectives, as organizations and systems and societies. And so today, I'm very excited because it's the inaugural webinar for this series that was born in conversation between a few of us at the Academy for Systems Change and Co-Creative around a simple question that has so many different possible ways to be tackled. Um, what is well-being and how do we support everyone to get it? So essentially, out of this curiosity and desire to engage at a different level that is more abundant and more life fulfilling, we wanted to invite you and all of our friends and colleagues across our organizations and beyond. Like there is a bigger ocean that we're all swimming in and are part of. So inviting you all into this inquiry that is really about well-being for all, thrivability, flourishing. How do we flourish in systems and in ourselves as our world is getting also more turbulent for all of us? And we want to be in a learning environment together. So not necessarily with answers, but with inquiries and curiosity and expanding our relationships through this learning. And so essentially centering well-being in collaboratives and in the way that we work going forward, looking at the conditions, sharing practices, wisdoms, stories. It's going to be an informal space. And so I'm very excited that today we start actually with this series with Kirsten Tabin, and you'll hear more about her work, of course. Just a couple of words about the Academy for Systems Change. And that vision of well-being and how to ground ourselves in it is really centered to our work. And so we are really committed to this deeper transformation of systems towards a future rooted in love that holds dignity, equity, belonging, and thriving for all life. And so relationships are very important. That's how we design our programs. And so that's why I'm so excited also to be part of this co-creative and Academy for Systems Change um, exploration and inquiry, because it has this deeper flavor of relationality. So with that, I'm just going to pass it on to Russ for the next segment. Welcome again. Very happy to be here with you all.
Thank you, Marta. I'm Russ Gaskin from Co-Creative, and I'm not going to dwell a lot on Co-Creative because we have a website at wearecocreative.com. And if you want to go there and learn more, you can do that. But essentially, what we do is bring together people who maybe don't like each other, or at least don't know each other, to create better futures together. And more, our work is focused on how do we systematically create the conditions for equitable well-being of all life in our communities, in our nations, in the planet. So I want to share a bit about the origin of this particular session because it has its roots in a lunch at Teaism in Washington, D.C. that I was enjoying with Kirsten Tebe. It was the first time we had met in person. We had done some virtual sessions together, but it was the first time we had met in person. And one of the things that I'm personally very interested in this work is what in the US we often refer to as use of self. And in some other parts of the world, people might say the English equivalent of self as instrument. So, how do we use ourselves as instruments of change in the teams and the organizations and the communities that we're a part of to be of service to the collective good? And one of the things I was really struck by in meeting Kirsten in person, which reflected on my virtual experience of Kirsten too, was her congruence. I felt like what I was seeing with this person was what I was getting. And there was just like a direct connection from Kirsten's heart to her head, to her mouth, to her hands. And all of this seemed very congruent. And it struck me how Kristen expressed vulnerability about things that she was unsure of in her work and things she had maybe not been aware of in the past, that as she became aware of, they then informed how she showed up in groups and how she worked with networks. And to say a little bit about that, she has a long experience of working with networks around emergency education, like education happening in emergency situations, supporting a Pan-African knowledge hub around that, supporting a bunch of collaborations that then eventually got packaged into Collective Mind, which is Kirsten's organization and a network of people around the world who support networks, different kinds of networks that come together to work on a whole variety of things. And she's worked around the world on these, and I'm guessing is going to work in more parts of the world, given her plans. But um, what we were really struck by was how self-awareness affects how we show up in these systems and affects how we engage and interact with those systems, and in many ways can create possibility and trust and connection and alignment and space for dissent. And if we're not aware of them and our shadows kind of peek their heads out at inopportune times, they can undermine trust and undermine collaboration. So that's what we were hoping Kristen's going to guide us in reflecting on and sharing her own experiences. I want to walk a little bit through the session flow. We're doing quick welcome and introductions. We're going to do some more introductions because a part of all of our webinars is meeting other people who are doing this kind of work. So we've heard that's a really popular activity. We're going to keep doing that. We're going to do a little bit of grounding piece here to transition into the space together. Kirsten's then kind of set the frame around the connection between self-awareness and collective good, and the choice points that we have in that. We'll do some group personal and group reflection, so some sharing and breakout groups, and then come back into the plenary, do some crowdsourcing for how does this all now inform collective well-being, share some final reflections, and close. I want to note a few things. Everything in your background is welcome. It might be dogs, cats, other kinds of creatures, dirty laundry, children, children who are quiet, children who are noisy. It's all welcome. It's all good. We're all whole people. And so feel free to show up with all that you bring. I want to invite you to have a pen and paper handy, or some kind of writing instrument, or your mobile device or computer for some reflection and note taking during the session. Third thing is we're recording the session. So just want to make folks aware of that because we do want to share these webinars more broadly. And so they'll be published on the web. And then finally, if you're on LinkedIn, we're not on X or Twitter anymore. But if you're on LinkedIn, we would love to connect with you there. And if you post anything about the session today, we'd love to be tagged and join a conversation with you. So I think we're over to Stella to help us transition into this space.
Yeah, hi. Hello. I am Maricela Aceves-Wexler with Co-Creative, and it is a pleasure to be here with you. And I'd like to invite you to something we sometimes called marking a threshold. And what that looks and feels like today is coming into this shared time and Zoom space intentionally. As Russ mentioned, we are whole beings, so checking in with our whole selves and just taking a moment to pause, find a comfortable position, maybe seated, maybe standing. And start noticing your breath. Can your shoulders drop down, relax a little bit more? And I invite you, if it feels good for your body, to bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your stomach. Eyes open with a soft focus, or gently bringing them closed, whatever feels good to you. Just bringing your awareness to the movement under your hands, where you feel it, maybe where you don't. Noticing the quality of your breath. How does it feel today? Maybe shallow. Is there a rhythm to your breath today? Simply noticing. No need to change anything about what your beautiful body is doing. And from this place of checking in with yourself, I invite you to set an intention. Maybe we can call it a gift that we would like to bring into this shared space and time together today. And when you feel that you have found it, take a deep breath in and a releasing breath out. Gently lower your hands if they were on your body. And we'll come back gently together, slowly at your own pace, opening your eyes if they were closed. Inviting you to turn your camera back on or turning it on for the first time. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that precious moment of checking in with yourself. And this is going to lead us into checking in with each other, starting that part of today's session. So this is going to be a time where we hear a little bit about who you are. This is the spicy and brief version. We're just getting a little bit of the flavor of who's in the room, what folks are bringing into the space. I'm going to drop in the chat a link to Slido. And so if you click on that, it's going to take you to a little survey, little poll. The questions we invite you to answer: your name and one gift you are bringing to our work together today, where you're joining from today, a place on the map, please, and one value that consistently informs your life and work. We'll give you some time to start responding. And if for any reason the Slido isn't working for you, you can respond in the chat. Let's see. As folks continue to respond, I'll share my screen so we can look at these together. So names and gifts generously being given today. You'll see they're continuing to come in. I won't read them all, but I'll highlight a few as I scroll down, bringing curiosity, peace. To the person who has a cold, thank you so much for being here. I hope this is nurturing and supportive of your health. Heart-centered innovation, genuine attention, presence. Thank you all. And where are we joining from today? Michigan, South Africa, Crescent City, just about an hour and a half from where I am. Crescent City, hey, Seattle. So we've got folks coming from many different places today. Ghana, hello. Right. And what values are we bringing into today's time together? Integrity, generosity, joy, coming in without assumptions, liberation. Just give a moment to take these in. Thanks all. And we will be using Slido again, so you can leave that browser open, or we'll drop the link again in the chat. Now I'm going to pass to you, Kristen.
Thank you so much. And wow, that marking the threshold really changed me. I feel so much lighter and more grounded. Thank you for that and everything that's come so far. Hi, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here. My name is Kirsten Tebby. I'm the founder of Collective Mind on the most recent iteration of my journey through life. I'm really pleased to be in this space with all of you today. As Russ already mentioned how this topic arose. This is one that's very close to my heart, and I'm really pleased to have this opportunity and this space to just explore it and explore it together. And Scylla, if you could share the slides just for this bit, we're going to just do a very brief framing of why are we talking about this? What is this topic and why? Again, I'm Kirsten, and this is a topic that as I said, is very close to my heart because I have myself been on an extended journey of just learning about myself, trying to deepen my own self-awareness, doing extensive introspection through therapy, through various means. And over the last number of years, because it is a slow process, at least in my experience, this extended journey has given me an incredible amount of insight and has, to be quite frank about it, really changed me, changed who I am, how I show up, how I interact, how I react. And that is, of course, super relevant in group settings. And that's the work that I do, right? Is about networks and collectives and how we interact to try to do good in the world. So for me, there's a strong link between how I show up and what I contribute to the group or how I participate in that collective, whatever it might be. So that's really why we're here, so that we can show up in the best ways possible, right? If you could go to the next slide. So there are a number of assumptions that we are working from today. So let me just lay them out briefly, and you can see this, this wonderful image, this graphic that kind of gives you a framework for thinking. But the assumptions we are starting from today are, first, that we are all the product of many influences at multiple levels. We're influenced by our family, our communities, our society, etc. These influences shape us consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, and they play out in how we act, react, interact with the other people in our lives, including in group settings. So the idea is to understand what's going on and why, what is influencing you and how, or me and how, so that you or I can be in control. I can act and react and interact in a way that is of my own choosing, rather than the product of some other influence. So the assumption is that we have to move then what is subconscious or unconscious into consciousness, so that we can choose how we want to behave, how we want to respond, how we show up, right? And as Russ alluded to, things peeking out in the shadows, there is a risk, we could say, that if you're not aware, if I'm not aware, I can't be at choice. I can't be choosing what I'm doing, how I'm acting, reacting, interacting. And so if you're not at choice, you can't really be in control of anything, and you'll simply reinforce those patterns. So the idea is, again, to sort of move towards this conscious state of those influences. Again, recognizing this is not a personal responsibility issue, right? We are the product of many things in the world around us, but we have a choice in how we can manage ourselves, right? And so that's really what we're thinking about here, is how we can take some, I don't like the word control, it's what's coming out of my mouth, but how we can be more at choice, right? So here's this little framework as diminutive, but this framework of awareness and attribution that helps us think about choice, right? And if we just go to one further slide, we can see just a very brief bit of text that gives an example of this. And if you are not aware of who Donella Meadows is, she's sort of an elder states person of systems change. And so this bit of text from her is simply talking about an experience that she had in a meeting where she showed up, and the others in the meeting with her also showed up in this more sort of self-aware, reflective, self-knowledgeable way. And it changed the group dynamics, right? And it changed how they were able to be constructive and productive and supportive, et cetera, in the space. So just a bit of an example here for us as we get started on this mini journey here today. So we're going on this journey together. We're going to start with a bit of a warm-up. So we'll do that first. And then once we warm up, we're going to take some time to more deeply reflect individually, and then in pairs or small groups, and then back in the full group in the full plenary. So if you can help with the Slido, we're going to warm up using another little poll. And we would like to hear from you. The question is, what do you feel is the connection between self-awareness and collective well-being? So I gave you some thoughts. What are your thoughts? What do you think this connection is between self-awareness and collective well-being? And please use the link that's in the chat. I'm going to open it myself here. And share your thoughts with us. And please share one idea per submission. but if you have more than one, that's just fine. Very welcome. Take a minute and share what you think. And as others are also sharing, you can look at what they're sharing and vote on those that might resonate with you. Be sure to scroll through so that you can see the full list. So let's just take a minute. Would love to hear your thoughts.
I'll share the screen shortly, Kirsten. We'll give folks a second to respond.
Great, thank you.
So we see people have started to upvote. Folks are still adding, so take time to see what everybody has contributed.
There are so many lovely ideas here. Again, you can feel free to vote to like the ones that you like. And if anything is really resonating with you, you should feel very welcome to unmute and just comment on it if you'd like.
And for what's been shared so far, we're back up top, Kristen, at where folks have given the most thumbs up, sharing resonance.
Right. All right. So I think we can move on in our process here today. Thank you so much for that, Selah. All right, so we're going to reflect together. First individually, then in pairs or depending on numbers, groups of three, and then back here in the whole group. And so if you could again share the slide with the prompts. We have a number of prompts for you. So the idea is that, of course, we are all different, we are all unique, and we are all going to come to this topic from a different perspective, a different vantage point. So we have created a set of prompts with the opportunity for you to choose the prompt that most resonates with you, that feels like it's bringing something up for you, that you want to think about a bit more deeply. So what you see here on this slide are 4 prompts. And as it says, you're going to choose one. So the process here is that you're going to choose one prompt. We have a short set of questions to help you think about that prompt. You're going to reflect on it by yourself, individually. You'll have 5 to 10 minutes. We're about on time, so that's great. You'll have some time for yourself to just think about the prompt and the few questions that we have that we'll share in a moment. And take your own notes as you'd like, but just, again, reflect on your own, separately, individually. Then we will move into pairs, or depending on numbers, if pairs aren't possible, we'll have a couple of small groups of 3. And you will be able, you will be able to share with your partner or partners in that group what you reflected on, and hear from them what they reflected on, right? And do that sort of sharing and bit of dialogue and discussion. Then we'll come back into the full group, okay? And we'll share whatever was coming up for us. It doesn't have to be, it won't be a sort of reporting back. It will be an opportunity for us to share what's come up, what's resonated with us, what has really felt powerful or important that we think others should hear, maybe valuable to others. So that's our process today. That's our process right now. So a little bit less than 10 minutes to individually reflect. Then we'll go into our pairs / groups of 3, and we'll have about 15 minutes. So you'll have a good amount of time to share with one another and have a little bit of discussion. And then we'll come back and again, just share what has resonated, right? What has really felt powerful, or like something that is worthy of sharing more broadly. So that's our process. Again, these are our prompts, these 4 prompts at the top of this slide. You will pick one. So you pick one of these, and then the questions below the beautiful squiggly line are to help you think about your prompt, right? So you pick a prompt, and then based on that prompt, you think about what did you become aware of from this experience? How did it shift how you show up? And how did this contribute to the greater well-being of the larger group or community? So there's a lot to think about there. You don't have to get through it all. Get where you get. That's fine. This is a safe space. We're here to just think and be together and work through this together, right? So let's start now.
Hey,
Let's
Kirsten.
yes, please.
Sorry, there was a question from Carrie in the chat. I want to make sure you were able to see it.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I think that should be fine. Sayla, can you manage Harry's request in the chat when we're doing the groups?
Yeah, I think the request is to stay as a full group versus going into breakouts. I might be misunderstanding it though.
Carrie, if you could.
Hi there.
5.
There's 4 of us in the room together. Like our team is together today. So I was just wondering if we could just have the conversation in our group together, if that works.
As a team.
If it's gonna mess everything up for you on your end.
So what we'll do is we're going to send everybody out in breakout rooms, and if anybody was matched with your video square, I'll make sure they get into the right place. So I'll just keep an eye out for that. So even if you get invited, you can, I'll create your own room, and then we'll sort it out. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah, if anybody ends up in a room solo, we'll make sure you get somewhere. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. And thanks, Russ. Okay. Let's get started. Are there sorry, let me pause. Any questions, any clarifications, anything not clear? It's very possible that I was not clear. Anything that needs clarified or any questions of any sort about this next step?
First, on some of these prompts, like the first one, a time when you received helpful feedback, I assume that can be, it didn't feel helpful at the time. Maybe in the end it was helpful. That's
Yeah,
not necessarily good or whatever, right? It's just
right.
feedback. Okay.
Yes, yes. I think I take the larger point there, Russ, of interpret as you will. You can work with these prompts with whatever's coming up for you. Again, we're all coming to this differently. So, and that's wonderful. That's where the richness is. So take these as a starting point and roll with whatever feels helpful and enriching. Okay. If you have any questions while we're doing this, we're just going to be here individually, making our own notes, reflecting. We'll take about 8 minutes. And then we will put you into your groups. So it is 38 after the hour for me. So if I'm very bad at math, that takes us to 46, I think, for 8 minutes. God, I'm very bad at math. Thank you. So feel free to turn your camera off, whatever feels right for you. And we'll just reflect individually before we go into groups. Thanks, everybody.
We had a question in the chat if now is when we're supposed to be in breakout rooms, and we will be headed there shortly. Right now, this is individual reflection time before you go into the small groups. We have a few more minutes before heading into breakout rooms. So maybe you can start turning your attention, if you haven't yet, to the questions below the squiggly line. All right, I'm going to open the rooms and you'll continue this conversation together. All right. If you have any issues getting into a room, we're here to support. Please let me know if you need help getting into a room.
Okay. Well, you've been on a bit of a journey. I hope it was interesting, among other words. We'd love to have you share something, if you'd like. We'd love to hear what came up for you, what resonated with you, maybe felt important, felt powerful, felt useful, supportive, something of that sort. Something you think others here in this space, also on this journey, would benefit from hearing or would be interested in hearing. Just have some time. We have 12, 13 minutes-ish to just take some time and hear what's happening along this journey. So you're welcome to put something in the chat if you'd like. And we always appreciate, of course, those that are brave souls willing to unmute and share in the group. So over to you, whoever wants to share or reflect something.
Well, I go, Kirsten.
Yes, please. Hello, Sarah.
Okay. So, yeah, I think my partner was Terry, and thanks for, I think what I'd like to share, it's amazing to think we're on different parts of the world, but we share similar experiences. And that for me is the importance of connection and the human experience. And one interesting, I think, generic fact or generic one thing that came up in the process is how being a middle child and a middle syndrome child, the understanding your positionality affects how you show up in the world. And that the understanding and the self-awareness of that then influences the way you show up and practice both as an individual and within groups. And I'll stop there. I don't know if you want to add anything more, Terry.
Oh, that was perfect. Thank you, Sarah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the sort of overlay of our families and what that means, where we begin our journeys and how that impacts us. Thank you for that. Happy to hear other reflections, and you can share new reflections. You can, of course, reflect on the other reflections that are being shared. And we have some also in the chat here. So from Carrie, discuss showing up with a higher level of self-awareness when you're the facilitator as opposed to a participant. Yes, that feels very real to me for sure. And then from Leslie, belonging. We can help others have a sense of belonging. Yes, yes. And if Leslie or Carrie, if you want to elaborate, feel free to do so if you'd like to unmute and share more, or others if you'd like to share.
If I could say something, when Juliet was sharing her reflection, she shared like a joke gone wrong type of scenario. And what really struck me was that it didn't, like, it landed in a certain way, but that wasn't brought to awareness until like months after the actual interaction. And that spoke to me in terms of how valuable a culture of self-awareness and collective awareness is in these spaces. Because if that was brought up and said, hey, like that made me feel like this, and can we do this moving forward? Great. We're moving on. So it's like kind of the importance and like the explosions of energy that these interactions can create, whether for creation or destruction, and then how the follow-up is done and where's the transparency in that follow-up. Like one thing that I did with a workshop was we rosebud and thorned it right after, like as a wrap-up exercise. And people were super fresh. They were super open because they were sharing ideas. And so we got all of the, here's what we need to do better. Here's how we can move forward out. So nothing was like bubbling under the surface. So that's my kind of general reflection.
I love that. And we've got some responses to you in the chat, Adam. And it also makes me think of both the self-awareness related to delivering the joke, but then the self-awareness that's required to give the feedback, right? About how it landed. And so it's on all sides, all of us trying to be self-aware of how we're impacting others and what that means and how it plays out, not just in the moment, but on longer time horizons, and being cognizant of that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Other thoughts, other ideas that came up? Yes.
So we talked about how it's sometimes easier to share intention for the space in professional settings than personal settings or social situations. Group dynamic with a friend group. Let's say you're hosting something and you have intention for a space, and people show up with what they show up with, and you kind of have a sense, but just how do you navigate that? I think was one interesting thing, and not so much just even navigating, but the realization that you can be intentional. I think that was one thing. And then my partner Madeline, she actually did the meta reflection of like all the themes, my bulleted list of like many things that were coming up, and she summarized it really well as all my stuff was around risk. How much risk you're taking it in a space, and there were like all these manifestations of that. You know, how much of your identity are you sharing? How much, you know, the honesty and the vulnerability, and at what point do you thread that in? And so all these things are really around like, frankly, collective dating in some ways. But yeah, that's really.
Thanks for that. Yeah, please, Raj.
I was going to follow up, yeah, because I woke up this morning, Suparna, thinking about risk and safety, right? Because we always talk about safe spaces and how do we create safe spaces, and then I was curious about like, well, how do we know if a space is safe unless we take a risk? Like until you test it, we don't really know. We just have our assumptions. And so, you know, how do we create, as other people have said, like spaces that are both safe and brave? And then you know, what does it take for me in myself to take a risk in a group? And how is my calculus around that different? Like, for example, as a white straight man, that it might be for someone else. So, like, there's so many layers of awareness, right, from the group into myself. But yeah, I've just been thinking about the interplay. Like, if people take risks in a space, it creates more safety for others to take risks.
Yeah. Plus, I'm wondering if I can just jump in there, and I think this is a pet thing for me. So what I try and do is tell people we don't create safe spaces. We want courageous spaces. Because when we change the language to courage and courageous behavior, then we find people tend to take a lot more risks. So perhaps that's something you can invite into the space. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you. And there's a comment in the chat too about what do you need, I need to be assured of to take risks? What would assure me? What would need to be in place for me to feel that assurance? Yeah. And that very much resonates with me. I think one of the issues that I have that I've worked on over the years is some version of that. It feels like a version of that, which is about control. And it's ultimately about not feeling safe and not feeling like I can trust the people or the environment or whatever it is, right? And so I need to control it, right? So that I don't have to trust, I can just control. But it's in a similar vein, right? It feels to me in a similar vein of this question of risk and taking risks and being in spaces that can have the potential to feel safe if you're willing to be a little vulnerable, take some risks, dip your toes, take little baby steps, whatever metaphor that might be. Yes, Deb.
Hi, I love how this is winding. So I was sharing with Jen that I most recently had a gathering that I was doing that in some pre-interviews, one of the women who is someone who tends to be kind of negative and isn't really liked by the rest of the group was sharing that she felt like the spaces that I was creating basically as the facilitator didn't allow for dissent, which I was like, wow, what a beautiful, painful thing to hear, right? Because of, my desire to have this, opening up the fertility of the possibility of the moment kind of thing. And so I brought in I thought a beautiful invitation as we, gathered the next time around, that careful thinking, wild brainstorms, and thoughtful dissent are welcome. And it was an in-person meeting, which was just such a gift, right, these days. And the energy in the room just went, shoo, wow. It just kind of came down and out. And like everybody I felt like it just opened up this really beautiful space. And then I felt like for the whole day, the conversations were just more grounded and and authentic. And it was a really beautiful moment for me as a fairly seasoned facilitator to invite in people, myself starting, taking more risks around navigating the complexity of what we aspire to do.
Deb, would you mind sharing that invitation in the chat? I felt like it was so beautiful, and I was like, okay, thank you.
Well, you read my mind. Other thoughts? Other reflections?
There's always this question that we carry of what is mine and what is the system? And when we're in systems that are so dominant about the right ways of knowing, the right ways of being, the right ways of doing, whatever, and our way is different, we can think, oh, I'm wrong, right? Like I'm the one that's out of the norm or different or whatever. And often like you have the thing that the system needs, that the system is lacking, the truth telling, for example, and particularly white Western dominant culture, right? I'm not saying that makes it easier or should make it easier or anything, but I think that boundary question is always with us. And I always notice it when I'm in a system where I'm forced to act heroically just to get like decent outcomes for my community, for the people I love. Like that's the system. That's not me. We shouldn't have to act heroically to have equity and to have dignity.
I really resonate with this reflections and what Bree also raised. And I just want to mention one thing that I always try to remind myself of, and it's that balance of being loving and truthful at the same time. So how can I be loving and at the same time rigorous and kind of holding on to my values? So that sometimes love might look more like actually a little bit of a fight in protecting or safeguarding those values. And some of the times it could be less guarded, but that balance between love and rigor, and they can coexist. And for me, it's always a bit of a dance. Oftentimes that dance is very deeply felt in the body. It's like, wow, that knot at the stomach or that sense of opening. And so I just always bring in ways through our bodies to check in and feel into. But thank you.
And not feeling
challenging one. But we have no doubt, all of us, some thoughts about how we go towards the next step from here. And I believe, Sibyl, that we're going to just collect some ideas in a Slido again. So there's another poll for you here. If you can click on the link and just start to share perhaps ideas of tools, of resources, of experiments, of tactics, general ideas. What do you do from here? How should we all go away from here? Taking more steps, doing more work. What would that look like? And actually, we had a couple things come up already, right? So Adam mentioned the rosebud and thorn little tactic, that seems diminutive, but that useful tactic, useful method rather, for analyzing. Perhaps we can put that into this poll. Deb, you mentioned and then shared in the chat your invitation, which was very helpful. So there are lots of ways to think about responding to how to respond to this question. But if you have ideas to share about again, sort of resources or tactics or tools or experiments, where would you suggest people go? What would you suggest we use as resources along this journey? And you can share in the Slido.
Would you like me to share screen on these or just let them come in and we'll share out afterwards, Kirsten?
Great question. So I think, especially given time, maybe what we'll do is just, I think we can all, if we're in the link anyway, we can see what's popping up. But maybe we'll just share ideas. And our plan here is that we will collect what you are sharing, and we're going to start a shared Google Doc that we will share the access to with you, so you can check it out. You can see what we've all thought of. You can add to it, but just as again, sort of a resource for supporting one another as we continue on this journey together, and separately, as it were. But looks like some really interesting thoughts here already. And of course, you can like the ones that you like. We'll put them all in the Google Doc, but yeah. If you have any thoughts to share, feel free.
And we can leave that open also to keep adding after this time has come to a close. So no rush on that piece, but we'd love for you to keep adding to that maybe a little bit after this session too, if you want some more time to think.
Yeah. This is great. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Kirsten, Martha, Russ, any final appreciations, reflections?
I'm very grateful for all that unfolded here. I always trust the wisdom of groups, and so this has come out in a beautiful way that I could not anticipate in any possible form. So thank you for everyone to really showing up for this.
Yeah. I would second that. And I think the other thing that's coming up for me in the moment is the idea that the hardest work is often the most important, and that it has ripple effects, right? It can change your own life. It can change the lives of the other people around you, the groups we're in. Everything can change, right? But that hard work is hard. So just again, so grateful and appreciative of the willingness to show up for that, and grateful to have been in this space with you all.
And appreciation to Kristen for both sharing her own experience and helping to host this space, which is the first of a series. And we're looking for recommendations too. So if folks have ideas for other folks who can share about the intersection, well, really about collective well-being, which could include from the individual to the organizational or the community to the broader systems. But that's the theme of the series, and we'd love to have suggestions. If you have any, we'll leave contact information in the chat. And we'll follow up too with resources, the resources that we just shared in Slido. So that will be a resource that we can share together. So I just want to check. I think we could do it as a shared Google Doc, maybe, or that way
Yeah.
people have more. We can add more for the community resource. And we'll come back and check on the sharing the recording. Maybe there are parts of this that would be good for public consumption, and other parts we'll choose not to share.
And you have my email address. I'll be sending you all another note. But if you have any questions or want to connect after this, feel free to reach out to me also. Great.
How about as we leave, we unmute and say goodbye as a human community?
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.